Okay, now at this point, I hope you went through and installed Xcode and the Expo command line tool. Hopefully that wasn't too boring to wait a few hours to download Xcode. I know it's a pain, but we do it once and then we're good. So now we're going to get started with our actual Expo application. And just moving forward, I'm going to use Expo and React Native interchangeably because they basically are the same thing. You're still working with React Native when using Expo, but Expo just adds a few more features. So I'm going to try and differentiate when we're using Expo specific features. Every other time, it's just always going to be just React Native. And you'll be able to see that by when we import items, like we did in our app.js file. We're importing logo from /logo svg, and then the first one we do import React, and then component from React. So you'll be able to tell the difference. You'll be importing things from React Native most of the time, and then sometimes specifically Expo. And those are just things built by the Expo team or improved upon by the Expo team. But now, if we get started with React Native and go back to the documentation, and we scroll down, we can see this very basic build native apps using JavaScript and React. So this is a component that would look like in React Native. And the reason why I started with just building out a React web application is because you could see the similarities. We're importing React and component from React. Import React component from React. And then this is where we go import text and view from React Native. And so this is where it differs a little bit. We still have the same classes. This class is named Hello React Native and extends component. This class is called app and extends component. And they both have a render and a return, a render and return. And you could just call, if you really wanted to, you could have the same functions, add, minus, component did mount, and the state in this React Native component. So all the functionality is basically the same. The difference is when you get to native functionality like the camera, location, accelerometer, those types of things that aren't available in web and are specific to iOS and Android. And then the components themselves. So instead of using div and p tag and button tag, we have React Native specific components. So see how we created this component of the header and we have the first letter capitalized, whereas like div is lowercase, p is lowercase. So this is a custom component. So just like we created our custom header component, React Native has their own custom view components and their custom text components. So instead of having a div here, you would import view, and instead of switching back and forth, I'm going to make it wider. We're going to have the view in the text, and then we're going to import that, and instead of div, we're going to have a view, and then instead of having p tag, we're going to have a text tag. And actually, if we import button, it would still be button, just with a capital B instead, and instead of on click, it would be on press. So there's a ton of similarities. Some of the naming is a little bit different, but you'll get used to that as we move forward. But I really wanted to show you the similarities between a web application and iOS and Android. And it's like the website says, you have to learn once and you apply that to all three platforms. You're not going to be able to copy a ton of code directly from web to React the way we have this set up, but we can code it so that we can leverage technologies like Redux. So if anything you build in Redux, all the functionality and state, you could copy and paste that 100% directly from web to native iOS or native Android, and it would work just fine. So that's how we're going to structure out moving forward instead of this state, this component level state. So like I said, I hope you have the Expo command line tool installed and Xcode installed because that's what we need to get moving forward. So we're just going to clear, make sure it's clear what we're working on. So this is my code folder. So if we go to Expo to get started, we're going to do up and running, and all you need to do is Expo init. So that's why we need the command line tool. We're going to do Expo init Instagram. So that's the name we're going to call our application, Instagram. And so it'll give you a few options. We're going to create our own tabs, so I want to make it pretty clear of how everything's built. So we're just going to start from scratch. And then we're going to use Yarn to install everything. You could, like I said before, you could use Yarn or NPM. It doesn't really matter. I would just stay consistent. If you use Yarn to install, just use Yarn for everything else throughout the application, or else you're going to have a yarn.lock file and a package.json.lock file. So just keep it consistent. It technically won't break anything, probably, but just to be sure. So now we're going to do cd Instagram for the application we just created, and we're going to do yarn start. So I'm just going to close down our old application. So when we do yarn start, it automatically uploads this localhost 19,002, and this is basically our terminal kind of in the browser. You could also use the terminal itself. And if we scroll back up, we did yarn start, and it runs a few commands. So Expo DevTools, opening DevTools, and it creates this QR code. So this part is really cool. This QR code and this QR code are the same. So this is where if you download the Expo app in the App Store, whether it's Android or iOS, just search Expo, EXPO, and that will ask you to sign up. Once we do the command line tool, once you install that, it'll ask you to sign up as well. And once you log in with that same account through the command line tool and the application itself, it will know what you're working with. So if you go to the Expo app